I'm going to do a video here on how to create a fence placeable. This is going to be using the actual fence system in Farming Simulator 22 so that you can actually click and drag out and create multiple fence panels and posts, until you don't want to anymore, I guess. So I'm not going to do the gates because that's a little bit more complex with triggers and things like that. I'm just going to be concentrating on the fence itself, but the idea is to give you an insight into how that is done, because there is a lot of information that needs to be kind of talked about and gone over here, and how those things are needed to be set up to make them work, basically. So I'm going to let's start off here, if I can remember where this is. Is it under? No, not that one. Could be this one. No. Every time I forget where this is. There it is. I'm going to add in this, which is basically a humanoid figure at a certain 1.75 meters tall. Guess that's kind of the average height of a human being. Just for scale reference, basically. And then I'm going to, let's turn on some screencast keys here. This is Kit Ops, if you don't know. Really fantastic bit of kit. A paid for add-on, mind you, but it is well worth every penny. So what I'm going to do is let's do Shift A Mesh Cube, and then I'm going to scale this down and just kind of get a rough idea of the width of the post here. What I think might be the thickness of a post. I'm going to say maybe we'll go with something like that, perhaps something like that. I'm going to go to face mode, and then I'm just going to kind of bring this up to the kind of height that I think it would necessarily be. So we'll do GZ, and let's maybe go up to, I don't know, perhaps maybe just above chest height, something like that. I don't know, maybe that's a bit too tall. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's what I'm going to go with. We'll do that. So let's do Control A, apply the scale, and then what I'm going to do is duplicate this. I'm going to make a 4 meter fence panel. So I'm going to do Shift D, GY -4, and this will be so that it I can set up the distance for the actual panel itself. And then what I'm going to do is let's do Shift D, RX. This is going to be -90, and I'm just going to basically move that up to where I think is appropriate. So what's going to look semi okay, I guess. I'm not too bothered about the fence itself in this. It's just going to give me an object that I can actually work with, so that I can show you how everything works, to my understanding at least. Let's go into wireframe here, and we'll select this edge loop here, and then do GY. I'm just going to move that back just ever so slightly inside that pole there, and I'm going to do the same one with this. So we'll do GY and move that back maybe somewhere to there-ish, something like that, I think. And then while I'm at it here, I'm going to take this and actually move this down a little bit, because I keep forgetting to do this. This is kind of like margin for error, this piece underneath, as it kind of follows the terrain and everything else. You need a little bit of a margin for error so that you don't end up with floating posts, again, in my opinion. So let's take this one then, and I'm going to do S Shift Y so that it doesn't scale on the Y, and we'll do maybe something like that, and then do S Z or Z, just make that a little bit deeper. That's maybe something like that. I'm just kind of eyeballing this stuff, so we'll do that. And let's see here. So if I do, we'll do that in edit mode, Shift D, G, Z, and just move that up maybe to somewhere around about here-ish. That looks good, I think. That'll do. So something like that. And then what I'm going to do is just create some posts in here, or whatever you want to call it, kind of joining posts to support these side slat things. I'm not very good at explaining posts and what a fence actually is made of, but as long as we end up with something that looks like a fence. I don't really care. So let's do Shift D, G, Y. Let's move this over a little bit. And we'll do S, Shift Z, and then just scale that down some, like so. And then if I go into edit mode, I'm just going to go into wireframe G, Z. Let's bring that up, and we'll do vertex snapping G, Z, and just snap it to that vertex. X, delete the face. Don't need that face on there. And then perhaps maybe, let's see, if I do array modifier, and we want this on the Y, so let's say maybe, I don't know, -6, something like that, just as a starting point, and then we'll just add in some parts here, GY, and just move that back this way just a little bit, so it looks about right. Maybe something like that will do. That'll be fine. Okay, so then what I'm going to do here, let's see, so if I go into wireframe edit mode, take this GZ, move that down just a touch, maybe to somewhere like that. R, Control R, loop cut, maybe bring that up to here. Back into solid shade, let's go to here. S, Shift Z, bring that in a bit. Go back into edge, G, Z, maybe bring that up. Something like that. I think that'll be fine. We'll do the same with this one, so let's do Control R, bring that up somewhere. G, Z, and then face, S, Shift Z, maybe do something like that. Again, I'm not too bothered about that. We can get rid of this one, don't need that one anymore. I'm kind of speeding through this because I don't really want to make a extra long video, because there is a lot of information that needs to be talked about here. So I can actually get rid of my humanoid because I don't need that anymore. That was just, as I say, as a reference for scaling. So let's see, what can I do? I guess maybe if I reset everything. So we need to put everything to the correct origin point. The post is fine, that's where it needs to be. And we're going to actually join these to this shortly, but I don't want to do that just yet. Like, don't really want to set the origin point for that because that's going to mess up my array. Okay, I'm going to leave that for now, and we'll do that in a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use hard ops here just to sharpen everything and auto smooth it. So let's do that, and sharpen, and that'll basically mark everything sharp, and also shade it smooth and auto smooth everything for me with one button click. Just saves me having to do several different button clicks. I can just do it straight from here. This is hard ops, another fantastic add-on, well worth getting. So let's see, if I perhaps maybe do let's do some unwrapping here before I get into joining everything together, because that'll be just make it a little easier with these ones here specifically. If I unwrap this one, because these are all arrays, this one is the only one that's actual geometry. The others are created from the array, which is still live in the stack. So basically, whatever I do to this one here is going to be done to all the others. So if I, like, for example, do this and then mark that sharp, all the others will get marked sharp as well, because they are just, in theory, I guess, duplications of this one, really. So what I'm going to do then is, let's see here, if I go up to here, let's turn off the sharps so we can actually see what we're doing. And I'm just going to select this one and then shift select these edges here, right click and mark seams. And we'll do A to select everything and unwrap. That's fine. Let's see here. No, that's not fine. Must have missed one. There we go, that one there. So let's mark that one as a seam and then unwrap. There we go, that's better. And then we'll do this one here. So this one's the same basically. So we'll do a loop select of that one and Q mark sharp. And yeah, so let's do this, and then we'll do exactly the same thing again, because realistically this post is exactly the same as that one. So it should work. The only thing here is the fact that this has a face on the bottom. It's going to need a little bit more. So we'll do mark seam A, U, and unwrap, and that's fine. And then we can do these ones here. So we'll go in here and in edge mode, select that one and that one, shift select that one, and mark seam. Actually, these ones here, let's do local mode, and we'll also do these ones as well. So if I go into face mode and select these ones, and then go to edge and mark seams, U, unwrap. Let's see what we ended up with here. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, so I think that should be all we need to do there. Okay, so let's come out of local mode then. And what I can do now then is this one here, I'm going to apply the modifier, shift select this one, and then basically join. Now everything is joined together. I can reset the origin here. Now, if your cursor is, say, over here, just do Shift S and then cursor to origin, right click, and then set your origin to the 3D cursor. This one's already in the right place anyway, so it doesn't matter, it's fine. And then we basically want to just pack everything, all the islands, because at the moment, if I shift select this one, they're all overlapping. So we need to kind of tidy this up a little bit. So I'm just going to do, let's do U, pack islands, and I think that'll probably do actually. Maybe I'll give it a slight larger margin. Maybe something like that will be okay. Again, something like this, that'll work perfectly fine. Okay, so let's see here. I can get rid of that for now then. And what I potentially am going to do here, let's see. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is let's save first. So let's do file, save as. Let's create a new folder. We'll call this fence. Whoops, wrong one. And then do we'll call that fence. There we go, and save as. Okay, so let's call this one pole because that's what it is. And this one here we will call panel. And then let's just update this object data properties so we get that all set correctly. And I don't really think we need to do much else just yet. So I think for that we should be good to go. So what I'm going to do then is let's see. Perhaps maybe I can do this manually just to save a little bit of time here. So what I'll do then is let's just export this out because I want to put some textures on it. So I'm going to do that now. Everything's unwrapped where it needs to be, so we can do that. So I'm going to let's do F2, copy that name, file, export, OBJ, and then we'll paste that into there. Selection only. Actually, no, before I do that, I always forget to do this part. Let's put a triangulate modifier on these. And the reason why I'm doing that is because not every program, piece of software, editing software, whether it be texturing, editing software, or whatever else, not every software will triangulate your mesh in the same manner. And what you can find is when you take it from Blender and put it into Substance Painter, or in my case Marmoset Toolbag, their algorithm for triangulation will be slightly different to the way Blender does it, and then the geometry can potentially be broken and you'll get really bad shading artifacts and things like that. So what I'm going to do is put a triangulate modifier here in the stack, and then when I actually export it, so if I go back to my pole here and we'll do file export, and then I can paste in pole selection only. By default it will automatically apply the modifiers. So what I basically will do here is on the export process it will apply the triangulate modifier, but it will leave it in the stack live here in Blender. So if I need to make any further changes I can always just delete it and continue on. So we'll do the same with the panel, and we'll just do file, export, OBJ, paste that into there and export. Okay, So I'm going to open up Marmoset Toolbag. Now obviously if you don't have this, then you will need to apply whatever textures you want to set up yourself. So I'm going to create a new bake project here, and then I'm just going to basically import these. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here because obviously these are exactly the same. So I'm going to put those into the high poly like so, and then I'm actually going to duplicate those. So I'm going to duplicate them and then basically put them into the low as well. So as I say, it's a little bit of a cheat, but what it will allow me to do is bake from the high to the low to get like ambient occlusion, cavity maps, things like that, that I can then work with the textures. Now I'm not going to spend too much time here. All I want to do is just basically create the appropriate textures that I need. So let's set up a bake output for the textures, and we'll do 16 samples and 16-bit channel just to get a nice resolution on everything. Let's see here. So if I come down, configure, don't need that. We'll do cavity, don't need material ID. Things like curvature and cavity, they are really nice if you're wanting to put things like dirt and moss and things like that in cracks and crevices, because that's what they will be used for, to kind of highlight those areas. So we can do that. Okay, so let's just make sure they are activated, and let's see what we can do here. So just make sure, let's do this one here. This is like a preview bake, just so that it kind of runs through and bakes all of the things, so you can actually just check them, make sure that they are doing what they're meant to be doing. And that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. That'll be fine. Okay, so we've got a nice ambient occlusion on all of that now. So that's good. And then what we're going to do is let's create a texture project here, and we can load in all of our textures. So I'm going to select my material and link my material up. Doesn't matter what it's called. This is only just to create all the parts. So I want curvature, normal, don't need normal object or material ID. I have a ambient occlusion, and I also have a cavity map. So I'm going to load all of those into there like so. Then we'll go over to texturing, and like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time here messing around with this. Any old texture will do. So I'm just going to come into materials here, and we'll do, let's do wood, and we'll see what we end up with. We've got quite a few actually, so see, I didn't want to spend too much time here messing around with this, so I don't know what a wooden fence is normally made out of, to be honest with you. Maybe we could do, no, I don't think that'll look very good. Lumber rough, I don't know what that one is. Let's download that one. I haven't tried that one before. So I'm not really wanting to spend too much time here, but I like to try out new textures just to see what they look like, and you know, all that sort of stuff. So let's just see, if I go back to here, what does that look like? Actually, that's not too bad. Doesn't look too bad, does it, for a fence and post? I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe what I will do is, let's go back to textures. Let's just quickly delete that one, and we'll try smart material just to see if that is any better. So what have we got in smart materials? Wood burnt, wood chopped. Don't know. Wood scuffed. Do you think? Oak old, maybe? Try that. Don't know, maybe a fence would be made out of oak. Possibly. I have no idea. Let's try that, shall we? Let's zoom in a bit more. Makes it a bit easier to put the material on. There we go. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Let's go back to classic. Yeah, that's not too bad. Do. Nice. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Okay, so let's go back to texture, and then what we can do is set up our outputs. So I don't need anything more in there. Let's do PNG, PNG. Let's set up a output. So we'll do fence, and we'll change that to PNG, save. So normal, this one we'll do ambient occlusion. So let's just save that as AO. And then we'll do add new. This one will be roughness. Whoops. Roughness. So we'll just do that, and PNG, PNG, and we'll do, last one will be metalness, metalness, and we'll set that PNG and metalness. Now obviously there's not going to be any metal because it is wood, but we need to have something there for our specular map, so we'll go with that. I'm going to reset those to 2048. That should be fine. And I don't need to do anything else there, so I'm just going to click export and we'll be hopefully good to go there. So let's minimize that one down. Let's go back into Blender. And what I'm going to do then is go to here and we'll create a new material. And I'm just going to call this fence underscore mat, doesn't matter. And then we'll put this one here, same material. And then what I'm going to do is let's go to shader editor. And I have Node Wrangler. It comes with Blender. Just need to come in here and then type in node. Whoops. If you can type node Wrangler, just activate that, and then you can do the same thing. Select your principal BSDF shades. You just click on it so it's highlighted, and then Shift Control T, and this will bring up the principled texture set. And then what you can do is basically just go to your folder and load them all in together. Won't do the AO, that needs to be added separately, but the albedo or diffuse, whichever you want to call that, metalness, normal, roughness. I think if you have a displacement map, it will do that one as well. But I don't obviously have that, so we're just going to do that. And as you can see, it will set everything up for you. So now I go to material preview, and we have our wooden fence with our textures on. Okay, fantastic. So I don't actually need all this stuff here. That's not relevant. That's not relevant, and at least for what I'm doing. I'm just going to bring that up a little bit, and we'll do image texture. Now I like to always load these into Blender just to make sure, you know, just to see what it looks like. Now the lighting in Blender is not exactly the same as what you're going to get potentially in the Giants editor lighting or the Giants engine lighting. So, you know, what you see here is not going to be an exact representation, but it'll be close enough. Again, with the Node Wrangler, I can do Shift Control and then right click and drag down to this texture node, and that will automatically add in a mix node, and I can then change that one to multiply. So now we have our ambient occlusion on here as well, so we can see that in these areas around the top here and whatever else. So we have our fence. Fantastic. So let's see what we can do here. The other thing we need to do is the pole needs to be a different material to the panel. That will become more obvious later on. So what I'm going to do is for the panel over here, I added the same material to both the pole and the post. Sorry, the pole and the panel, and that was just so that I could get all the textures in here without having to add them in to two separate materials. But what I can do now is select the fence and then come over here, and you'll see that it shows that there are two objects using the same material, but it says click to make a single user copy. So if I click that, this will now become its own material, but it will retain all the textures that were on the original material. So it just saves me a lot of time having to add them all in twice. So here what I can do is just change the name on this one, and it is its own material, completely separated from the other one. It's just a real quick way of doing things to set your different textures up and whatever else, your materials and textures and whatever else, if they're all going to be shared across the objects. So With that done, then what I'm going to do is let's talk about UV maps. What I'm actually going to do first of all is I'm going to just save another copy of that. Now UV maps, basically the way that the shader works, which is the placeable shader, it requires a second UV map for vertex offset, and it also requires vertex painting as well. Now I'm pretty sure that the vertex painting has something to do with snow effects. You know, when it snows, it actually forms a specific texture that makes it look like there's snow on the tops of the fence panel and the post. That's at least my theory behind that. I could be, again, completely wrong, but that would make sense to me, how that is all applied through the shader to do with the vertex painting. But anyway, irregardless to what is what, it needs both a second UV map, and it needs to be vertex painted. If you don't do either of those, it will not work. So what I'm going to do is open up the object data properties, UV maps, and you can see the fence panel, which I have selected at the moment, has a UV map already, which we created earlier on with the unwrap and everything else. What I need to do is actually create a second one. Now I always rename these UV map 0 and UV map 1. So you just click on the plus to add another one, and then UV map 1. Don't have to do that. You can call them whatever you want, but that's what I tend to rename the two. And then for the panel, this is really important. We need to do a second unwrap, and this needs to be different to what we have here, because otherwise it won't work correctly. So with UV map 1 selected, I'm going to go 3 on the numpad to go into right orthographic. I could also do perhaps maybe control numpad 3 and then do it this way, but I always prefer to do it this way, and then if I have to, I'll actually flip the UVs here if that is required. Again, just a personal preference thing. So A to select everything, and then what we're going to do is U, and don't forget to have UV map 1, or whatever you've called this, your second UV map. Make sure that one is selected, not this one, otherwise you'll break it and it won't work properly and your textures will no longer match. So UV map 1, then we're going to do U and project from view, and you'll end up with something like this, and this is only relevant for the panel, not the post. So once we've got our unwrap, what I always do here is just press S and scale it up some, so it kind of fits into the gridded area here a little bit better. So perhaps maybe something like that, and then do UV, sorry, and then constrain image to bounds, and then G, and move it down so that this point here is right up against the corner. Now there may be a different method that also works, but this is the method I've been using to create these fence panels, and it works perfectly fine. If you know of a different method, fantastic. But that's the method that I've been using, and it works. So I'm going to stick with it. So we'll do that one. We'll do this one here while we're doing UV maps. So again, I'm going to rename that one to UV map 0. I'm going to just add another one in and then rename that to UV map 1. We don't need to do anything with those. We can leave them exactly as they are. And then we can just basically close this down. We're going to go back into solid shape mode, and then with this, I go into edit mode and make sure all of the faces and everything are selected, and then I'm going to go back into object mode and switch to vertex painting, and I'm going to do face select, and I'm going to bring up my tool settings. Always change these to yellow, just preference again, whatever color suits you, go with that. So I don't know if it makes a difference, in all honesty, but I always just use yellow and it seems to work. And I'm going to do basically paint and then set the color, and we now have vertex painting on that pole. So we'll go back into object mode, select the panel, make sure everything is selected in edit mode, all of the faces. Just press A and everything's selected. Go back into object mode, and then go back to vertex painting, face select, yellow again, and then just set vertex colors, or Shift K is the shortcut. And now we have those all set up and painted, and that should be that really. We've got everything now all all set up as it needs to be with all of our different UV maps and whatever else. So I'm just going to again do another save here. And then we just need to export everything out into an i3D. Now I always export the fence panel out first, because I need to check to make sure that that actually is going to work correctly with the vertex offset. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select the panel here. F2, we'll copy the name from there, and then in the old editor exporter we would do file export and it would be i3D in here somewhere. That's no longer the case. The new Giants i3D exporter is exactly the same in the way it works to Maya. So basically there may be some slight differences in here, but in Maya you actually have to open this up, and it's all, the export is all done through here with all of the different attributes, tools and whatever else. There's no more of this file export stuff that we've had in the past. So here what I'm going to do is just uncheck the use Blender file name. I'm going to click the browser. I'm going to paste in my name here, make sure you're in the right folder obviously. Set the i3D file and it will give you a warning to tell you that you've done that. An information panel, I guess, not a warning, it's just an information pop-up. And then once you've got that, just click export selected. And if you go into your folder, you hopefully should now have an i3D. Now, I find sometimes because I have PNG textures and they are not correct, they don't have bitmaps or anything else, it will crash the editor. So what I always do is come in here and just delete all of that out, and the file IDs for the textures that you don't have anymore because you just deleted the file paths and everything else. Delete all of that out, and then it won't cause the editor to crash. You might not have any issues with your editor crashing with the PNGs, but I do for whatever reason. So I just delete them out, and we're good to go. So we have our panel. So what I'm going to do then is go into the custom shader first before I do anything else, and I'm going to add in the placeable shader, and I'm going to change the variation from none to vertex offset. In the Y offset, I'm just going to put 1, and you can see here that that's working incorrectly, because where my gizmo is, that would be the origin point for the post, so that's where the post would go, and I want the fence panel to actually stay connected to the post here, or pole, whatever you want to call it, and arc this way on this end, not at this end. So that is actually wrong. So before I go any further, I'm actually going to delete that one out, and I'm going to go back in the Giants editor and then open up my UV editor again. And all I'm going to do here is go to UV map 1. Let's get rid of this texture. And I'm going to go with everything selected here, UV, mirror, and I'm going to mirror it on the x-axis. And that's it. That's all you need to do there. And then we can just close this window down again. Go back into object mode and then re-export it out. Okay, so all you do is if you've got the name in here, okay, then fine. If not, go to here and then re-enter it and all that sort of stuff. Set your i3D. All I need to do here is just go export selected, and I have my panel again. And for some reason I may have overwritten something there because I don't have my, oh, actually I didn't export the post, did I? Not yet. I'm getting ahead of myself again. So let's open the panel again. And yeah, that's what I thought. I'm going to need to delete all that stuff out. I had loads of errors and those crash the editor. So let's get rid of all of this. Like so. This is Notepad++, by the way, if you are unfamiliar. Totally free. Just do a Google search or whatever. Notepad++. Text editor is fantastic. So we're back in here again and no errors anymore. So let's apply the placeable shader, change the variation to vertex offset and put in 1, and now it's moving in the right direction. So this would be where my pole would be, and now it's moving against the pole accurately. Now in theory it's never going to be this much of a climb. It's only ever going to be, in my opinion, maybe something like that. possibly that, you know, it's never going to be, you know, much more than that, because you'll end up, it'll just break. It'll go so far and then it will just start to break. You know, this all goes up right up to 10. There's no way that that would work. It doesn't work in the editor, let alone in the game. So like I say, it's only ever going to be like that, or like, you know, perhaps maybe like that, up to somewhere like that. It's never going to be any more than those, in my opinion, at least. Otherwise, it's just going to not work properly. So we know that that's working. So I can actually go ahead and save that one now. And then what I would do is export the post now that I know that's working. Or the poll. I keep calling it a post because that's probably what I would call it, not a poll, but anyway, whatever. So we'll do that, and then we'll just rename that, set the i3D file, and then export that out. Okay, so we now have our poll and our panel. So what I'm going to do then is let's convert some of the textures. Actually, what I might do here is let's create a new folder here first of all, and I'm going to do FS22 underscore vents, and then I'm just going to copy everything over what I need, because we're going to get a bit out of control here. So what I'm going to do is convert these into DDS files first of all. So let's do this one, and let's do file, save as, no, not a target file, we want DDS, save. This needs to be DXT1 with bitmap, and we'll click OK, and let's just drag that over there, and we'll do this one, the normal map. So I'm just going to do file, save as, and again we'll just do DDS, DXT1 with bitmap, and I'm just going to drag that one over. The other one I'm going to do that in GIMP, so let's just open up GIMP here. This is going to be a specular map. If you have Photoshop, I think it's a lot easier in Photoshop, but I don't have that, so I'm just going to use GIMP. So I need metalness, AO, and roughness. Now, giants don't work with roughness, they work with smoothness. So what you need to do here is basically with the roughness channel selected, or layer I should say in this case, just go colors and then invert it, okay? Otherwise you'll end up, it will be really shiny, potentially, because it will be the wrong way, the values will be the wrong way around. So we're going to do image mode grayscale, and then I'm just going to do colors, components, compose, and we want this to be on RGB. This is going to compose our channels, or layers in this case. So we've got RGB, red, green, blue, and I'm going to just click OK. This is now my specular map. I'm going to do file, export as, and let's go to my folder here. Let's just select the albedo, that's fine. And I'll just replace that text there with specular, and we'll do that. And then I'm just going to do DXT1 with bitmap export. Okay, we can close that down. So then what I'm going to do is let's open up my actually what I would do, thinking about it, let me take the and that. Whoops, why does it do that? I hate it when it does that. It's a copy of everything. Let's do that, and that one, and that one. I think let's move those over there. So panel, poll. Yeah, okay. Right, let's close that down. Don't need that for now. So what I'm going to do then is just quickly put these textures on. So we'll do this one first, as that's already got the shader on it. So let's come in here and we'll add the albedo and glass and normal. Okay, so that's that one. All good. Yep, that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Then I'm going to do here is just literally drag in the poll. Make sure that the text, the material name is different to this one, whatever you have named it. because sometimes I find, and it seems to be really random, when I drag in another object, or even if I import it, even if I go file import, when I bring it in, it will adopt the material that's already assigned to another object, because for strangest reasons sometimes. So yeah, just make sure that it is a different material so that you're not going to get messed up with the shader variations and all that. So we'll just quickly apply all of these textures to this one as well, normal. And we could do the same with this custom shader. So we'll do that placeable shader and leave the variation on none. It doesn't need a variation change there. And we now have our panel. Excellent. A post and pole and whatever the hell they're called. Right, let's so what I'm going to do then is go File, Save As, and really wish it would remember what folder I was in, but anyway, whatever. So I'm just going to do fence and save that like so, close that down, and then I don't need these anymore. I can just delete those because this is what I'm going to be working with. And what I'll do in the next video then is we'll go through the next stages of setting all this up with the XMLs and joining all the parts together. I'm Shell Wizard. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.